So first, we're going to handle the index action in the recipes controller. So I'm going to get rid of all of this, and the index will basically list out all of our recipes in our app. Save this. So first thing, I'd go to App, Controllers, and I see I don't have a recipes controller, so right click on controllers, new file, recipes controller.rb, and then class recipes controller, subclass from application controller. And first, we want to handle just the index action, right? So let's go ahead. Okay. So now if we go back to our site, if I type in the same link, which is /recipes, and hit return, now we see that a template is missing. Okay, it's no longer saying that the controller is missing since we have the controller. So let's go ahead and build an index view. So remember, this is a recipes controller. So under views, we're going to need a recipes folder. So right click on views, new folder, and we're going to call it recipes. Okay, and within that folder, we'll create a new file, index.html.erb. I'm just going to say, hello world, this is the index page. Let's see what that did. If I reload the page. Okay, there you go. So you have a index page and it's working. So that this route is working currently. So now let's go ahead and start editing the index page. So here, I don't want it to say hello world. I want it to say, since this is listing all the recipes, I want it to say all recipes. Okay, and then I want a line, horizontal line after this. Let's see what that did. Okay, so I have all recipes and I have the line. All right, great. Now I want to iterate through all of the recipes that we currently have and then list them out in a specific format, right? So I'm going to create a new terminal window here. And then hop on the Rails console. If I type in recipe.all, see I have 1, 2 recipes. Okay, that should be good enough. And I want to iterate through the recipes and then list them out. So first I'm going to, now before we iterate through a recipe, you need a recipe object, right? And this is our view, and view gets an object passed to it from our controller. Currently, we don't have any object that we're passing to our view, and we'll take care of that in a second, but we want to, most likely we're going to call it recipes, the object that we create. So recipes.each do recipe, which is the standard format when anytime we loop, and then now when I say standard format, every time we loop, I mean for our application, there are obviously lots of ways you can loop through an object. So we need this add recipes object created. So if you go to your recipes controller, the index action, this is how you create it. So add recipes equals recipe.all. So what this will do is it'll go to the database, pick up all of the recipes, and it will return it in this hash-like structure, and then that will be stored in this add recipes object. Okay, now it's an instance variable, so it'll be available in our view automatically. So since it's available in our view and it's a hash-like structure, we can iterate through each element in our in our structure, and then we can do something with them. So what do we want to do? Let's add some Twitter Bootstrap styling. Div class row. And if you remember, we've done a lot of this when we were building our homepage. So I won't explain in too much detail what each of these do. I would encourage you to look up Twitter Bootstrap and play around with the styling yourself. Okay, so what am I doing here? I'm basically making some room. Eventually, we want to have an image of our chef or our user. We're going to handle that using Gravatar, and we'll discuss that later. But for now, I just want to have a little area for the Gravatar. And then we want to list out the contents of the recipe. So we're going to give it we're going to give it a span here. Now I'll explain what that means in a second. So remember, if with Twitter Bootstrap, you have, it's kind of like a grid system, right? So you have, essentially, you can view this as 12 columns, and you can do different things among those columns. What I'm saying here is that I want to allocate 2 of those columns to the image for the Gravatar, and then I want to allocate the 8 remaining columns to the contents of my recipe. Okay, and this is how you basically tell Twitter Bootstrap to do it, which is call. You can say large, you can call it medium or small, but again, I would encourage you to look up Twitter Bootstrap's website, and well basically adds some styling to it. So if I just go something like this, well creates a box around it with some gray styling. So see, that's what a well does. Okay. So since we have 2 recipes, it basically printed this out twice. And the first part over here is missing because we left it open right now, but this is where we're going to add the image. Okay, so what do we want to list out here? We obviously don't want to list this. We want to say link to. Now, where are we getting this recipe from? Remember, we're inside the loop still, so this recipe. So we want to list out the recipe name, and we want it to be a link and we want it to go to the show recipe page, which we'll add later. Then open up p tags. I want to list the summary. And then I want to I want to show when this was created. Okay, so let's say span class quiet for like a dimmer view of it. And then small. Rails gives you this method that's called time ago in words, and that basically takes an argument for the date. So I'm going to provide it recipe.createdAt, which is one of those magic columns that Rails provides for you. Because we used timestamps in our database table, it basically gave us that createdAt column, if you remember, and that's tracked by Rails. So this time ago in words will basically display that in a very user-friendly format. Okay, and then space ago. All right, and then let's see what that looks like. Okay, so you see what time ago in words did about 13 hours ago. So that's one of the Rails magic things. It provides a lot of helper methods for you. Now we see this is a link, and we're going to create the link to the show page. Right now it's an empty link, so it goes nowhere, but it's taking shape. This is how we want our recipes index page to show. We don't want the description over here because that will be a lot of area, and we just want the summary and the name to display on the index page. Okay, so that's as far as I wanted to go in this lesson. Now that we have an index page, in the next lesson we're going to work on incorporating the Gravatar image over here. Now, before the lesson, I would encourage you, if you don't have one already, to go to gravatar.com and basically create an image for yourself. And what it'll do is it'll associate that image with your email address. And it uses an MD5 hash of your email address, which we'll talk about in the next lesson. But for now, go ahead, create an image. So when you test out the application, you'll be able to see a Gravatar image of yourself show up in our application. Okay, I'll see you in the next lesson.